Hello and welcome. I have been waiting to make this video for such a long time, and now that it's finally here, I'm super excited because I've been working on this for quite a while now, and today I will finally be able to reveal the entire 3 fortune loot table. So this was kind of a hassle to research, but thankfully Riot ended up introducing a 2 versus 0 PBE mode, and that one allowed me to get some help and just like as a back and forth finally crack down on the entire loot table, which I'm going to share with you guys today. Let's get right into it. So the first one is fairly boring. It's a zero loss. What does zero loss mean? It means that you're pretty much on a win streak every single time that you win without the previous round being a loss. This is what you can get: 2 gold, 3 gold, 4 gold, a tier 2 unit or a tier 3 unit. A tier 2 unit is, for example, something like a Teemo, and a tier 3 unit is something like a Jinx. So nothing too particularly interesting here, so I would say we're going to go straight into the 1 loss, and it's not that much more exciting because this is still on the very low end of the loot table. You can get 3 times a tier 2 unit, and these tier 2 units can also be double. It's the same for the tier 3 units. You can get 6 gold here, or it's a mix between getting tier 2 units and gold, though obviously you would prefer one of these 2 outcomes, but again, it's a fairly basic one. Now with the 2 losses, we are getting a little bit more into the juicy parts. Yes, 2 losses definitely where stuff gets really juicy. So in case you don't know the symbols, I will explain everything. So first of all, you can get, this is the Thief's Gloves, the item where you use 2 gloves, and you get like 2 random items assigned to that unit. So you can get a Thief's Gloves with nothing else, but still it's a completed item. It's a pretty solid outcome overall. Here you can get 2 gold and 1 item. And just to clarify, if I'm writing item here, what I mean is an item component. So that could be like a BF sword or like a chain vest. This is just for, because it's just like easier to write this way than to just write item component. Okay, so just keep this in mind if I'm writing item here. Special cases I will definitely explain in detail. And this is also one of my favorite outcomes because the 7 gold plus the Neeko is absolutely amazing on the 2 loss one. Getting a Neeko this early on is great. 12 gold is also very solid, and 3 times a tier 3 unit and 2 gold. Overall, 2 losses is super solid, and the first time you can get your hands on a Neeko. Let's continue to 3 losses. So what can we say about the 3 loss outcome? Well, it's pretty similar to the 2 loss outcome. So you have yourself like 9 gold and 1 item instead of something like 2 gold and an item. You have 12 gold and a Neeko instead of 7 gold and a Neeko. So as a general rule of thumb, you can think of it like getting 5 gold more per outcome. It's the same here with the tier 3 units, 3 of them together with 9 gold. These 2 are a little bit more special, and this is the first time you will be able to receive 2 item components, and here you have a pretty solid outcome with 2 tier 4 units and 1 item. So tier 4 unit in this case can mean like a Riven, a Talon, a Sejuani, anything in that category. Overall, I would say 3 losses pretty solid, but if you had 3 losses, I would maybe suggest inting 1 more round, because at 4 losses, some really good stuff is happening. So let's take a look at 4 losses. And I would say we have one of my absolute favorite outcomes in the early game, which is the 6 times a tier 4 unit. And if you get some really crazy RNG, this is pretty much a 2-star tier 4 unit, which would be doable in the stage 2 even if you have super early fortunes. So 4 losses, I like running it just to get those juicy tier 4 units in the current meta. But the other outcomes aren't too shabby either. We have like 3 gold, a Neeko, and 2 item components. We have 2 tier 4 units, 8 gold and an item. Here we have 8 gold and 2 items, and then we also have an outcome with 3 items and 0 gold. So overall, 4 losses is an amazing one, and I usually would recommend, if you end up getting fortune after the stage 2 carousel. It's like you pick like a Jinx or a Karina of the carousel, and that's the first time you get yourself the fortune in. This is usually the outcome I would be aiming for, because 4 losses isn't that much, and it's easy to collect potentially the win before the stage 3 carousel, where people might still be in an economy mode, and then maybe, just maybe, you get yourself these juicy tier 4 units and you can come back into the game. So let's continue with 5 losses. What do we have here? We have 18 gold, a Neeko, and an item component. We have 9 gold and 2 Thief's Gloves. We have 13 gold, a Spatula, and an item component. So 5 losses. As 5 losses, for you to remember, is the first time that you will be able to get a Spatula. So if you're ever aiming for a Spatula, this is probably the magic number you might be wanting to aim for, unless you want to go to one of the outcomes that are up ahead. You also have an outcome with a lot of gold, 23 gold and an item, and a very similar one with 15 gold and 2 items. Nothing too crazy, but definitely 5 loss is definitely 5 loss sticks out a little bit with the 2 Thief Glove outcome and the Spatula outcome. So that's it for 5 losses. Let's take a look at the 6 losses. So 6 losses has some very interesting stuff. We have the 28 gold and 2 Neekos, and here for the first time we will see legendary units. So this one gives you 3 legendary units, 18 gold and a Neeko. So if you get really lucky, that could be a 2-star legendary. You get 14 gold, 3 items, 12 gold, 1 Spatula and 2 items, or 2 legendaries, 12 gold and 2 items. Now it used to be in the previous fortune loot tables that you were able to get the legendaries earlier, but that really caused a lot of issues with people having like a cane at Crux, and ended up not liking this type of playstyle. So now 6 losses is the first time that you will be able to get your hands on a legendary. But again, it's similar to the 3 loss one. See, the thing about the 6 loss one is that it's pretty good, but 7 losses is, in my opinion, the absolute best number to aim for, because it has this great mix between not taking too much damage and having some great comeback mechanics. So if you had 6 losses, I would suggest in one more round, because 7 losses is where all the good stuff is at. And why am I saying this? Well, it's not because of the 21 gold and the 3 items. It's also not because of the 24 gold, the item, the Neeko and the 2 items. No, it has to do with these 2 outcomes at the bottom. These 2, in my opinion, are like the best you can get. So you have yourself 5 tier 4 units, 15 gold and 2 Neekos. That is pretty much a guaranteed, a Talon 2-star, a Jhin 2-star, a Riven 2-star. It's just crazy. So if you consider that if you would have fortune at 2-1, that means you could lose the 7 rounds, win before the stage 3 carousel, and after the stage 3 carousels, you could potentially be running around with a Talon 2, a Riven 2, and make a huge comeback way before everybody is going for their roll down. And then we have the other one, which is also absolutely amazing. 3 legendary units, 20 gold, and 2 Neekos, which means you get yourself a guaranteed 2-star legendary. Now, having a Kane 2-star, for example, already after the stage 3 carousel is pretty much a safe top 4, I would say. So these 2 outcomes are the ones that I'm always aiming for if I end up having an early fortune, and they're usually worth spending most of your money to specifically go for these 7 losses and hopefully get one of these 2 outcomes. And as a final outcome, we also have 9 gold, 2 spatulas, and 2 item components. So 2 spatulas, they're not combined. So this is like, you can build a Force of Nature, but it doesn't mean you're getting one, you get 2 individual spatulas, so you can use them for a Mage Spat, a Dusk Spat, or if you choose to make yourself a Force of Nature. 7 loss, my highest recommendation. But the other stuff isn't too bad either. Let's go to the 8 loss. So 8 losses. We have 22 gold and 3 Thief's Gloves. We have 15 gold and 5 items, 5 item components. We have 1 gold, 3 spatulas and 2 items, 5 tier 4 units, a Force of Nature and 2 items, 2 Neekos, 19 gold, a Spatula and 2 items, and 5 legendary units with 14 gold and 2 items. Also definitely some very solid stuff, but as you can see, compared to the previous one, the previous one gave you a combination of tier 4 and tier 5 units with Neekos, which is something I value very highly. The outcomes here aren't exactly bad, but I would just say overall the comeback potential in 7 losses, for me at least, feels higher than 8 losses, so I would arguably spend more money to get the 7 loss outcome than go for the 8 loss outcome. But if you disagree, then feel free to share something in the comments. If you see an outcome here where you're like, you're crazy, this is the stuff I totally want, feel free to share. I'm always open for criticism. Okay. So let's go towards the 9 loss outcome. So the 9 loss outcome for a long time was the highest possible loss outcome you were able to get. So what did we have here? We have 22 gold and 6 item components. We have 15 gold and 5 Thief Gloves. I think a lot of people saw this outcome. Was usually very funny to look at. We got ourselves 2 Force of Nature, 4 items, 8 legendaries with 4 items, 16 gold, 4 Neekos and 4 items, and 20 gold with 5 individual spatulas. So potentially 2 Force of Natures and a spatula that you can use. So yeah, that for the most part used to be the highest outcome you can get. But in patch 10.23, Riot added 3 more outcomes that I'm gonna go over, and some of them are pretty darn crazy. So I hope you guys are ready. Let's go towards the 10 loss outcome, and you will already see the first difference. As far as I can tell from my testing, there are only 3 possible outcomes you can get for 10 loss, which are 33 gold, 3 Neekos and 5 item components, 14 gold, 2 Neekos, 2 Thief Gloves and 2 Force of Natures, and we got ourselves 2 Neekos and 1 of each item component. So this box here, this gave us some trouble, because if you ever are in a situation where you might end up with 10 losses, clean up your bench. Trust me on this one. You need to clean up your bench. The amount of items, the amount of loot boxes that you're gonna get, you're not gonna even be able to open all of them. So starting with 10 losses, you really have to put yourself in a mindset that, oh my, you need to clean up your bench, you need to clean up your item bench, because you're gonna be quite low HP if you have 10 losses, and you have a lot of decisions to make if you end up getting these item component and Neeko outcomes. So just keep this in mind in case this ever happens to you. It gave us trouble on the PBE in the testing mode, so I can only assume it's gonna give you a huge amounts of trouble if you're in a live game in a very low HP situation. So, but yeah, that was it already for the 10 losses. Let's continue with the 11 losses. Some very good stuff here too. So we have 10 gold, 3 Force of Natures, 3 Thief Gloves. We have 2 legendaries, 2 Neekos, and 5 item components. And we got ourselves, well, I just called this a mort box because I ended up doing a box for the items, and it's always the same 8 items that you're gonna get here. So it's a Guardian Angel, Morelos, QSS, Force of Nature, Infinity Edge, Locket, Jeweled Gauntlet, and a Zephyr. You will always receive these items. So yeah, that's about, so again, you're gonna be in a situation where make sure your item bench is clean, because if you start to get overwhelmed by 8 items flying in your face and having to decide who gets like what items, I assume with 11 losses you're gonna be pretty low HP, so starting with 10 losses, you really need to be ready for these types of situations. But yeah, that was the 11 losses. Let's go to the final one, the 12 losses, the current maximum that you can receive, and there's some good stuff here. We have ourselves 30 gold, 6 Neekos, 3 Force of Natures. So that is just absolutely crazy, and a great way to get yourself a 3-star. Well, a 3-star legendary might be hard if you're running on 12 losses, but definitely a 3-star tier 4 unit with 6 Neekos shouldn't be too difficult to achieve. you got yourself 5 legendaries, 30 gold, 5 spatulas, 2 Neekos, and we got ourselves a new box, which is the all double component box, which means you will get these specific items: Deathblade, Rapid Fire Cannon, Bramble Vest, Dragon's Claw, Rabadon, Blue Buff, Vamox, Thief Gloves, and Force of Nature. So your item bench is going to be filled to the max. So this is the entire Fortune loot table. If you're looking for these sheets in the description of the video, I will post a link where you can get the entire Fortune loot table in one picture, so you don't have to worry about saving any of these. So yeah, that's the Fortune loot table. This 3 Fortune loot table is completely separate to the 6 Fortune loot table. So let me talk a little bit about some misconceptions potentially, or questions you might have already. So first things first, if I get a legendary in a box and my bench is full, will the legendary become gold? And the answer is no, you will not be able to pick up the loot box until you have a slot in your bench. Also, a question that probably will pop up is like, will I get a better outcome if I lose streak with 6 Fortune? And the answer is no. 6 Fortune is completely tied to winning. So 6 Fortune is like having several outcomes where you can get one of these outcomes if you end up winning, and the 3 Fortune loot table just runs simultaneously with the 6 Fortune. So I'm gonna do a video about 6 Fortune as well, but for this video I wanted to only focus on the 3 Fortune loot table. We also ended up having some bugs and some changes, so in case you guys saw like a potential outcome, or you had an outcome that wasn't listed, that might be that this outcome ended up getting removed. For example, there was an outcome that at 3 losses that gave you like 13 gold and 2 items, which was absolutely ludicrous, which ended up being a bug, so it got removed. And that was everything for the Fortune loot table, but I also wanted to go over some of the highlights. So again, I will post these in the description, so you don't have to type them up or anything. So let's go over some of the highlights, maybe because you're aiming for something specifically. So let's look at the Neeko highlight. So as you can see, you can get Neekos at 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's pretty much every single time. I would say the outliners right now would be that at 9 loss, you can get yourself a 4 Neeko. At 12 loss, you can get yourself 6 Neekos. And I would also, again, pay attention towards these 2 7 loss scenarios where you have 2 Neekos with a combination of tier 4 and tier 5 units. Overall, though, it's a lot of Neekos, and you'll definitely get yourself a bunch. So for the next highlight, we have the spatulas. With spatulas, I kind of like only mean the individual spatulas, and I kind of disregard all the Force of Natures here. So the first time you can get yourself a spatula would be at 5 losses. If you're aiming for something like a Dusk Sped, then you can pretty much get one every single turn, except the 11 one. In 10 losses, every item component does include a spatula, so you're guaranteed one there as well. And yeah, I would say this is pretty much just the highlight for spatulas. The cool thing about getting them is that you sort of like have the choice between whether or not you want to make the Force of Nature or not, because, you know, sometimes having the spatula and having the specific trade item might be a better situation for you. And the last one we have, the last highlight I wanted to make is regarding tier 4 and tier 5 units. I find this highlight to be really important because I think in the current meta, the tier 4 and tier 5 units are very, very strong. They allow for a great comeback mechanic. So this is usually the ones that I'm aiming for. Again, I would highlight the 4 loss one that gives you 6 tier 4 units. So that's worst case, you know, it's a bunch of gold, but best case scenario, you might find yourself with a very, very clear direction that you can commit for. You can also get this very, very early. Like 4 losses is something you should usually aim for, because it's like, it's this great combination between not losing too much HP, but allowing yourself to make a decent comeback. And yeah, then again, like the Legendaries, they start at 6 loss, so 6 loss is the earliest you can get yourself some legendaries. And other than this, I would say maybe I should put a bit of attention to it, because this 11 loss outcome is a little bit weird compared to the previous ones. So yeah, this 11 loss outcome is a little bit weird compared to the other ones. It's 2 legendaries, 5 items, 2 Neekos, which in terms of gold value doesn't really fit in there. It might not be correct, I don't know. I'll have to ask Riot about this one. It's not the first time that fortune outcome didn't perfectly work the way it was supposed to, but whatever. If it ends up not being correct, then I'll probably just fix it in the future pictures, and yeah, that should be fine then. So other than this is, yeah, I think the 9 loss one is pretty interesting with the 8 times legendaries, but also the 12 loss one with 5 legendaries and 2 Neekos is pretty cool. So yeah, that was it, I think, already. So let me just repeat, if you're looking for any of this information, I will put them on the YouTube description and probably also post them on Twitter and Reddit, so they should be very easy to find. I will do a separate video regarding 6 fortune. 6 fortune isn't as exciting as 3 fortune, because it really is only a very few amount of outcomes that are all tied to winning once. So I kind of wanted to separate it from the 3 fortune loot table. But other than this, I hope this helps you guys. If you're ever in a situation with an early fortune kench, and you might get a better vision on which outcome you want to aim for to have a great game. Okay, that was it on my side. I hope you guys enjoyed this type of content. Feel free to subscribe, and see you guys the next time.